CPIM General Secretary Sitaram Yechury ഡൽഹിയിൽ മാധ്യമങ്ങളെ കാണുകയാണ്. തത്സമയ സംരക്ഷണത്തിലേക്ക്.
During its last 5 years of rule and the hardships imposed through demonetization, through GST, through the price rise, through various unemployment, the farmers' crisis, all these issues were live issues on which people were concerned. But all this could be pushed into the background by the alternative narrative that they projected. And that was a narrative built around communal nationalistic jingoism and the fight against terrorism post-Pulwama. And on the basis of that narrative, they were successful in pushing this back, the agenda of the people's livelihood issues. How this happened was that is an important factor, that this happened through the build-up of the persona of Narendra Modi, and this was done through a host of methods. One was, of course, the effective use of technology and its instruments or tools of messaging backed by big data analytics, where individual preferences of individual people were all identified and the messaging was made appropriate to it, and by very micro level social engineering. And this micro level social engineering, for example, what happened in the assembly elections in UP, where you had the non-Yadav backwards and the non-Jatav Dalits specifically targeted, each micro caste group, and by mobilizing that, they could also break the formidable alliance of SP-BSP's control. Now, this was all possible because of the massive use of money power, and we have not witnessed an election like the 2017 election, where money power played a very, very big role. And also, there were other factors like the Election Commission's role that also permitted the build-up of such a persona narrative as a personal narrative. And naturally, all this work was assisted by the vast network of the RSS affiliated organizations and the NGOs. As far as the left is concerned, these elections have resulted in a big erosion in our strongholds, particularly in Tripura, Bengal, and to some extent in Kerala. The Politburo discussed the initial reports from the secretariats of the important states that are represented in the Politburo and have come to certain formulations that will now be presented to the Central Committee that is meeting from the 7th to the 9th of June. In the meanwhile, before the Central Committee meeting, the party state committees of Bengal, of Kerala, of Tripura, and of all the other states will also be meeting, and they will give their more detailed analysis and a self-critical appraisal of why this sort of an election result has emerged, what are their opinions. And based on the Politburo's discussions and our proposals today and those reports, the Central Committee will do a thorough self-critical introspection. The Politburo believes that these elections call for a thorough examination and also for drawing the proper lessons so that this experience can help us in actually strengthening the independent base of the party and our capacities for political intervention through the unleashing of popular struggles. The struggles growing and not reflected in electoral voting, that has happened due to various factors that I mentioned of how they successfully managed to change the narrative. That will also be addressed and how this can be resisted. and what are the measures that will have to be taken. So our objective would be to self-critically identify our shortcomings, draw the proper lessons to rectify the situation that is there before the left in the country, and on that basis to further strengthen the left and its political intervention capacities. That is an exercise that we will undertake in the Central Committee, and a proper report will be prepared, and after that all of you will also naturally will come to know of what are the specific and concrete measures that we are going to undertake. The other factor that the Politburo noted was that in our strongholds, particularly in Bengal and Tripura, these elections were held in an atmosphere of terror and violence. In one of the two seats in Tripura, nearly 85% of the polling booths were actually rigged. More than 50% of the polling booths, there was a demand by opposition, not only left and the other opposition, that they should be repolling. The Election Commission has held repoll in about 10% of the seats, but that still is the largest anywhere in the country. But that did not really solve the problem, because the manner in which the booths were captured, and that is all there in social media and visuals. But then, unfortunately, the Election Commission did not heed to implement their own promise of a free and fair election. Both in Bengal and Tripura, we have lost lives of our comrades in these elections. 2 in Bengal, 1 in Tripura, and many are now critically in the hospital, critically being treated in the hospitals. Post-poll violence continues. In Bengal, this is reaching a dangerous dimension of actually leading up to communal clashes, and that will be very, very dangerous for the future. Now, post-election, again we have noted, not only is post-election violence in these states that's continuing, but post-violence, these reports that are emerging of attacks on religious minorities, like from Gurgaon, from Madhya Pradesh, in the name of beef eating or in the name of assaulting cows. I mean, these sort of incidents that are happening is an ominous sign for the future. These incidents can go completely contrary to what the Prime Minister-elect now has assured the NDA MPs in the Parliament, and through that to the nation, that his new government will be working on the principle of inclusivity and in generating confidence in all sections of the people. Sabke saath, sabka vishwas. This was the slogan that was given. But these sort of incidents, that vishwas that has to be there, I mean, it just goes completely contrary and opposite of that. So clearly, these are indications that there are very, very big challenges ahead. And these challenges, according to us, pertain to 4 basic areas. One is to safeguard the constitutional republic, its secular democratic foundations. Second, to safeguard the constitutional institutions, the institutions under our constitution, from being further eroded, and to restore their constitutional authority, right from the judiciary, from the parliament downwards to all other constitutional authorities. What we have seen in the last 5 years, that has to be stopped and their authority restored. Thirdly, in safeguarding people's rights and civil liberties. The election campaign was full of all this Tukde gang and all these attacks on the freedom of expression, etc. Now, this is an issue of concern for the future. So this is the third aspect on which the challenge has to be met. And the fourth, and most important, is on the livelihood issues of the people. Already reports are that the petroleum prices have now been hiked again today. So once the elections are over, further attacks on the livelihood status of the people will mount. So in defense of those livelihood issues, so on these 4 issues, The CPIM will initiate with all of the forces who are willing to come forward to actually rise unitedly to protect these four aspects and to meet the challenges on these four dimensions.
കഴിഞ്ഞ ലോക്സഭാ തിരഞ്ഞെടുപ്പിൽ CPIMന്റെ ശക്തി കേന്ദ്രങ്ങളിൽ വോട്ട് ചോർച്ചയുണ്ടായി എന്നാണ് PB യോഗത്തിന് ശേഷം സീതാറാം യെച്ചൂരി മാധ്യമങ്ങളോട് പറഞ്ഞത്. തോൽവിയിൽ നിന്ന് പാഠം ഉൾക്കൊണ്ട് തിരുത്തുമെന്നും അദ്ദേഹം പറയുകയുണ്ടായി.